there, welcome to Psychology at the Table. This is my continuing conversations at GameholeCon, and I'm honored to be joined by Chris Lindsay today.
Hi.
Thank you so much for coming on and chatting with me.
Thank you for having me.
This is awesome. So mostly today I wanted to kind of pick your brain about different tips that you might have for dungeon masters who are running games and they're running into problems with certain players.
Sure.
And like how to handle these, because you have a lot of experience here.
I have quite a bit of experience. I've been running D&D games since I was 13, which was a long time ago, back in the 80s. I've stemmed across a lot of different player types, and I've been doing organized play since about 2000. And once you start becoming really active in an organized play environment, you're literally changing groups of players every time you sit down, like every 4 hours, right?
Yeah.
So you get to see a wide array of personalities and like function versus dysfunction at the table, and it's really a challenge sometimes to kind of read your players and try and figure out what it is that they want. Right, and sure, you can ask them, but sometimes they're not really particularly good or articulate about explaining or understanding what it is that they really like about the game. They just know that they like something.
Yeah, I found that too. When you ask people what they want, you don't usually get the answer of like what they want.
No, not exactly. No, it's and so over the years, I've kind of developed the ability to kind of read, and so you get players that will sit back, and some of them are back because we have other players who are. Have a very particularly strong personality, and so they kind of fade to the background. So you have to look for that, or you'll have people who fade to the background because that's just where they're comfortable. And so it's telling the difference between those two things and kind of seeing what the whole dynamic of the group is as they come together. Because frequently they don't know each other either.
Right. It's the first time they're sitting down together.
And so it's trying to gauge. And so when I have a player that's fading to the background, I'll attempt to draw them out by making sure that when I'm running, even outside of like a combat where everything is kind of very structured, running the game in such a way that every time something new is introduced, I'm kind of going across the table and asking each person what it is that they would like to do. So they all have a chance to have a voice at the table. And at that point, you kind of have to gauge, based on the reaction of the player, how comfortable they are in jumping in certain types of situations, whether it's social or exploration, and just getting that. I don't know. It's really hard to explain because I approach it very intuitively. Right.
It's a lot of experience and kind of.
It's that, and I don't have a particularly analytical personality. Type. So I go from the gut quite a lot, and then trying to draw them out, and you see, and if you try to draw them out and they kind of shrink back, you're like, okay, they're not comfortable being totally pulled out. So then I just kind of like make sure the opportunity presents itself, and then if they engage, they engage. If they don't, I just move along so they don't feel uncomfortable.
Yeah. Right. Well, that makes sense.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
And then managing those players who like to be that dominating force at the table and do all the cool things, and you're like, everybody gets a chance in the spotlight. It's like, now you have your moment. Okay, your moment's over, and this person gets their moment, and you don't get to tell them what to do.
And that can be one of the hardest things is people get excited and they just are like, oh, and do this and do that, and it's like, let's slow down. Let's
Exactly, and you get your players who are very tactical, and sometimes you have to caution them because D&D, like other games that have tactical aspects to them, is you only get one piece to play with, and that piece is extremely complicated and elaborate, unlike, say, chess, where you have all these different pieces to play with, and each piece does something that's very specific, and you play with them like that, right? And some of these players who are really into the tactical will see all the other player characters as their pieces, but they're not. They get one piece, everybody else gets one piece too, and they get to decide how their one piece interacts with the worlds.
When you're seeing those kind of dominant players at the table, and like, do you directly tell them like, okay, hold on, it's not your turn, or like, how do you manage their energy and make sure that other people get that chance?
I just basically I can do body language and and just like communicating. I let them know, like, when I'm looking at them directly, this is your chance to do your thing. I know you want to do something cool. And then when they're finished, I go, okay, are you done? And they'll say yes. And then I go, okay. And then I move to the next person. And I just change my focus each time so that my entire attention is on the one person who's doing the thing.
Right.
So that the people who might, like the dominant player might be over here, but I'm not focused on the dominant player. And if the dominant player then attempts to speak up, I'm like, just one moment, we'll come back to your turn in a second.
Yeah.
And then I keep going, right? And it's just a matter of like, making sure that you draw those very clear boundaries when you're playing so they understand what their turn is, right?
Right.
That's a big challenge, particularly if you get, we have a lot of players that come in that are somewhere like on a spectrum, right? So teaching them how to take turns is like a very important part of the game.
Definitely.
Right.
Yeah.
And they understand once they have that structure in place, that idea seems to resonate with them very well.
Yes. Yeah.
So.
Yeah. No, that's great. What was when you're setting up for like just these one time, sit down and play for 4-hour games, do you have any protocols that you go over for like if topics come up that make anybody uncomfortable? So some of the like session 0 stuff that you don't really have time to do necessarily in structured play. But.
Not generally speaking, I don't, but that's mainly because when I'm developing a game that I intend to run in public, I pretty much follow the rules of Disney as far as like the types of themes and elements and stuff that I put in there. I'm really only comfortable adding maybe more adult elements into a game when I actually intimately know who the players are. So like in my home games where all the players are very, very close friends of mine and I know where all of their boundaries are, it's very easy for me to gauge that. But when I'm going to go to and DM in public with those players, I try and keep everything as PG-13 light as possible, closer to PG probably, and manage that way. If I get a player who gets a little exuberant, I'm going to be like, okay, we need to calm down just a little bit, and let's come back to this side of the Star Wars spectrum here and keep it so that the whole family can watch.
Got it.
So, because I just don't know them individually, and so it doesn't make me particularly comfortable engaging with them past that.
Right. Well, so it sounds like one of the big things for you, it's energy management.
Absolutely. Table management is paramount, and I have an education and background. I have a background in education.
It's a con.
and it's not dissimilar from like classroom management.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So you're standing in front of a classroom and you're trying to manage, and the absolute worst, because I worked in secondary education, is middle school. Middle school kids are absolutely bonkazonks. They have like so many hormones running through their bodies and they're super energized and they want to do all the things and they have no filters.
Yeah. The filter is not developed yet. Yeah.
and so managing that energy is really important, and knowing when to bring the room energy down by slowing myself down and getting them to come with me.
Yeah.
Right, is really important, and then bringing it up. And it's no different in any other entertainment experience. They do the same thing in the movies. Yeah. Where as they're bringing you through the movie, they're introducing elements and story concepts at a pace that's going to evoke an emotion that they want you to feel. Right. And Dungeons and Dragons is the same way.
Yeah, most definitely. And I think that's one of the parts of dungeon mastering that's hard. Like, you want to know the story and have an idea of the mechanics and the rules and what your players can do and everything. And then you need to learn how to manage people.
Yes, absolutely. It's very challenging. And for some folks who perhaps have a more like analytical style, not as in tune with like what's going on with their players, it can be extremely challenging for those dungeon masters. So they're going to have to work a little bit harder to make those connections with their players and understanding, and try not to steamroll them.
Yeah. If people are looking for some good resources or places to learn about how to work with like the energy of the table, sort of bring it up, bring it down, is there anything that you can think of to recommend, or places that you point people towards?
I'll be perfectly honest when I say that the vast majority of what I know comes from just years and years of playing, and the fact that I'm just personally wired a certain way. Yeah. Right. Yeah. And all I can say is I don't know any like books you can read or anything like that. It's just it's like any other discipline. So I've studied many other things as well. From dance to martial arts to all kinds of things. Take it slow, right?
Yeah.
Even if you're an experienced dungeon master, if you find you're having this problem connecting with your players, slow the whole game down and give yourself an opportunity to make those observations, right? And once you can like start doing that slowly, right, then you can pick up the pace of your game and make it go faster. So, because then you're looking for those cues. Now that you've seen them, you know what to look for, right? But take it easy. Start nice and slow, and very much pay attention to the players. It's not just about the stats in front of you for the game or the story in the book. The players, it's their story. It's not your story as a dungeon master.
Right.
You're just presenting a situation. They're going to make this story happen. And so you really have to present the situation and then leave this behind for a minute and just focus on like listening.
Yeah.
So any resource that you can get that might help you to become a better listener, I guess, really would be probably invaluable.
Yeah. And I imagine too, it might also help like to watch certain dungeon masters play, like.
Absolutely. And pay attention to what they're doing, particularly what are they doing when they're not talking.
Yeah.
Right? How do they engage when they're not talking? The best dungeon masters you'll see, like your Matt Mercer, Chris Perkins, Jeremy Crawford, they're listening very intently to what their players are doing. They're not staring at their notes. They're not trying to fiddle with dice or anything. They're paying attention to the players.
Yeah. One trick that I've started to see Matt Mercer do a lot, and now current critical role is when the players are doing something, he starts writing things down. They're like, oh God, he's taking a note. What did we just do?
Yeah.
And I love that though, because like it starts to go like, oh, he really is paying attention to what we're saying and we're doing, and so we really need to be thinking in that way.
So much so that he is in fact taking a note because he heard something that he's like, I want to revisit this idea later on.
Yeah.
So he's taking that note down.
Yeah.
So, which is awesome.
It is. I think one thing I've found that can help sometimes to bring players back in, especially when you've presented a very challenging situation, is just to go, what's your character feeling right now?
Exactly.
How does your character feel about this?
Yeah. And that's important actually, because we have this character, we have this one player piece, and it's very elaborate, and it has all these things it can do. It's really easy to get caught up in all the little elements that are on the piece of paper, right? There needs to be a time. There's a time for that, but really, when you're role playing, even when you're making decisions, perhaps in an action situation, it's not about what's on your piece of paper.
Yeah.
It's about who is your character and what are they likely to do. I'll be honest, as a player, I generally play characters that have like zero impulse control, which is driven other players absolutely crazy. In the really real world, I am very meticulous about how I make decisions and making sure I have the right information and stuff like that. But in the game, I remember when we were first playtesting 5th edition, I managed to trigger 3 encounters at once over the course of 2 rounds. I'm sorry, guys.
I do the same thing. My character I play in my ongoing campaign is just incredibly impulsive. She's been cursed so many times.
Yeah.
My dungeon master knows, like, you put a shiny thing in front of this character, she's going to do it.
Yeah, it's kind of like that scene in Braveheart. I'm pretty sure I can get out of this, but you're in trouble.
Yes. But it's fun, and I think like that's something too as a dungeon master, to know what is fun for your players. Because like, even though my character's got into a lot of trouble, and it sounds like your character got into a lot of trouble.
Yes.
It's fun.
It's tremendous fun, and part of the reason why I like to do it though, probably because I am a dungeon master, and I love to see the look on the dungeon master's face when I do something where I literally walk right into their trap. I mean, I've been playing this game for a long time.
Yeah.
So I'm like going to a dungeon, and in the back of my head, I'm going, if I were going to put a trap in here, it's right there. And sometimes I'll just go, cool, I head right for that. He goes, are you searching? No, why would I search? I'm grabbing the thing and opening it up.
I don't notice.
My character wouldn't search.
Yeah.
He's like, that looks interesting.
Let me see.
And the DM's like, okay. And they have that smile on their face, and they're engaged, and they're happy.
Yeah. Now, kind of off the topic we've been talking about, but it's a question I'm curious on. It's like, for you as a dungeon master, what is the thing you want to see most out of your players at the table? Like, what's the thing where you feel like, I did?
I just want to see them engage with the elements I put out there for them, and I want to see them enjoy the game. I just want to see them like get into it and just like forget about the regular world for a moment, and to just be the person they want to be inside the game, and to have that moment where they have fun. I had the pleasure last night of DMing a game for Nicola de Gobis and Christian Belomo from Milan, and I wasn't sure how that was going to go because they come from Italy, different culture, and I don't know how they work. They were just like anybody else, only it was funny because they had set themselves up with their characters so that they would bicker all game long. One was playing a half-drow, the other one was playing an elf. And they did not like each other, and they made eyes at each other and like little curses at each other all game long as they were going through the whole thing. And it was so funny to watch. So whenever I had an opportunity to like, you know, to introduce an element that would make them do more of that, I would just do that.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. And the thing I want to see delight in my players.
Yes, absolutely. I want to see them get that opportunity to, players will build a character to do something specific.
Yeah.
And so when I figure out what that thing is, I try and like open those little boxes so they can just start shining with that thing that they wanted to do. Right? It's always sad when you have a player who had something that they wanted to do with that character, but they never get to do it. Yeah.
My own personal game. I play a bard.
Oh yeah.
And
bards. That's my class. That's my
class. But I designed her specifically to be like their social face.
Yeah.
And we're 2 years, almost 3 years into the game, and like I'm finally getting to do that now.
Yeah.
Like where it's like, okay, her putting on a show, her telling the story, her
Absolutely.
is like becoming, and like I love that my dungeon master's finally like doing those encounters and making that stuff because it's so much fun.
I got to do a little bit of that when I went last year. I went down and I played D&D with Satine Phoenix and the Sirens of the Realms.
Oh, fun.
And one of my favorite characters is actually my online namesake, Onatrix, is a tiefling bard, and he is the spitting image of the demon lord Gratz, and he's very much into hedonism, and he's decadent, only he's good, and he tries to fight the worst parts of that.
Oh,
but
interesting.
when they encountered him, when I joined the party, essentially, it was at the Olam School for Bards, in Waterdeep, and basically we had opened up a dimensional space and essentially created a medieval rave inside this, and we had bards in the background who were like spinning music and getting all this crazy stuff going, and there were illegal substances and stuff, and all kinds of crazy stuff going on, and pillows everywhere and people doing crazy stuff, and they came into this situation, and it was so fun to just play that character in that moment for a few moments. And then we moved on with the game, and other people got their opportunity to do their thing. But you know, we had a bartender that was right behind me named Hey Man. And I would just yell out, "Hey man!" and I put my hand up and drink. And we had a lot of fun with the sirens. It was a blast.
That's fun. Yeah. And so I think one of from just the story spinning we're doing here is to know what your players want to do.
Yeah, absolutely.
And to try to make sure to give them those opportunities.
Yeah. And if you can't figure it out, it's fine to ask them. You know, hey, tell me about your character. I know that's kind of sometimes a nightmare situation when people are telling you about their character, but really as a dungeon master, if they're going to play in your game, the more you know about their character, the better you're going to be able to provide that experience. Yeah.
Well, and it's fun too because I love to read through Reddit and read character story and gaming stories, and there was one that someone wrote about another member of their party who never engaged in combat.
Oh, yeah.
And it was driving the whole party nuts until they got to like level 12 or something, and they figured out this member of their party was actually a merchant.
Oh, okay.
And was always getting stuff to sell, and what they were doing was collecting a lot of the treasures and then giving them to every town that they went to.
Yeah.
And so when they needed allies, because this one character had been building allies the whole time, they had all this support.
Oh, yeah. That would be fantastic. And all of a sudden, that player got that moment in the sun to just say like, and then all my friends will come to help us. Yeah. And then the droves show up.
Yeah, exactly.
That's brilliant.
Yeah. Making those moments is just so much fun.
That would be very exciting. That's a really long lead up, but that would be cool.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for coming on and chatting. Any final bits of advice or guidance that you would give to dungeon masters out there? Or?
The best thing I could tell you is make it your game. do the things in the game that makes it fun for you and your players, and just the rules are there to facilitate, not to direct the game. So make it your game.
Awesome. Chris Lindsay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And as always, people, let's make space at the table for everyone.
Yep.